Okay, so the first part of this is going to be slightly soapboxy and ranty. It's just what we're working with today. So stick with me through that, and I promise we will have solutions at the end. But I feel like it's really important before we dive into the solutions to kind of frame up what's happening here. And so we're going to do that before we get to solutions. So that is that. Hi, Shantae. Hi, Alessia. Oh my gosh, so happy you guys are all here. You're making my Monday. Okay, let's get to the ranty version of this. But basically, first I'm just going to talk problem, then we'll talk solutions. But like, this has really been on my heart for quite a while. I think something that's really important for me to say here is I really don't want to be like the coaching industry police in any way, shape, or form. But I also think that we can't not speak to these things when we see them, because if not, like, everyone just thinks they're crazy or makes themselves wrong because no one else is saying it or is willing to say it. Like, and so in some ways, this kind of does nothing for me to say this, but it kind of does everything for me to say this, because I believe in the coaching industry. I believe our industry is good. I want to be part of this. I don't want to feel like, oh, I don't even want to call myself a coach. I want to feel like we're having these conversations and they're important. And I'm like proud to call myself a coach and be part of this industry. So this is not in any way, shape, or form about one specific person or program or any of those things. But it is a conversation on what I'm seeing in this industry, like in general, but not in this industry as a whole. Does that make sense? So please know that this is not a suggestion that our industry is bad at all. Like, I'm so proud to be part of it, but this is a suggestion that things are happening within our industry, as it happens within all industries, that are really worth taking a critical look at. And that's what I want to do here. So we're talking good girl narrative in the coaching industry. I think it's different than what we're all used to, but I feel like, old good girl narrative, right? I would be curious what your thoughts are around this. But I feel like old good girl narrative is like soft, meek, mild, all of the things, right? I love that, Elisa. Yes. Proud to be a coach and always here to elevate our industry and standards. Exactly. Right. So old good girl narrative, like real soft, real meek, mild, all those kind of things. And I feel like we've done such a good job in many ways in our industry of stepping outside of that, like encouraging women to like show up and be fully authentic and talk about money even, you know what I mean? And talk about like these taboo subjects and talk about pleasure and like just like such a wide range of things that I feel like we've just completely dismantled within our industry around what it used to mean to be a good girl. And I think that's so fucking cool. And I feel like this new good girl narrative has kind of emerged that we need to absolutely break as well. Thank you, Shantae. Co-sign everything. Yes. So I feel like this new good girl narrative has like really emerged, which is basically like someone that's willing to do anything their coach says, but never ever needs help or support in getting there. Someone that never has a bad day, that is never low vibe, that is too self-responsible to like need calls or support in any way, shape, or form, while also getting insane results, right? Doesn't question things, doesn't have needs, doesn't have any expectations of the coach, doesn't have any expectations of the container, right? Like that's the new good girl narrative. It's like the toxic cool girl narrative, right? That a lot of men perpetuate, where you're supposed to like meet his every need and be like so perfect, but also be too chill to have any needs of your own or require commitment in any way, shape, or form. Does that make sense? Like that cool girl version, like, or, there's like a million versions of it, I think, but it's like, go eat the burger with him, but also like be a size 0, blah, blah. It's like all this stuff of like, I want you to show up in this way that looks perfect, but has no needs or expectations put on me whatsoever. And I feel like that's what's happening in our industry, right? Hi, Shari. She says, hey, driving with you. I'm pretty sure I'm about to vibe with this whole thing. I think you are definitely about to vibe with this whole thing. So no pressure to comment because you're driving, but once you're not, would love to know. Michelle says, yes, understand the topic now. Just that the cool girl narrative has ruined my life, as you know. Exactly. Shantae says, oh, okay, seeing where you're coming from with the good. I wasn't sure where you initially were alluding to, but yep, I see this a lot. And for me, who loves being a coach, this almost seems to go against coaching. Like I want my clients to ask for support, 1000%. We're going to talk about that so much more, Shantae, but like that, like, it's like, that isn't the normal most, but it should. Like, right. There's so much to say there. Hey, Steph, no problem. Thank you for being here. Hey, Saranza. Yeah, so I'm sure everybody was like, what the fuck is she talking about? But this is the good girl narrative that I'm talking about, which is so toxic in my opinion. Like it is just completely, I'm going to use this word, and I struggle to using this word a little bit because I feel like it's not quite right, but it's a little bit like grooming. Now, grooming is something you're doing to perpetuate abuse. And I'm not saying that's what's happening here. I do not think most coaches are being abusive at all. That's not what I'm saying, but it is a little bit like grooming because it's like, I'm setting it up and I'm kind of manipulating in this way where if you get into my containers, you're supposed to be XYZ way and perform an XYZ way and bring me perfect results on a silver platter, but want or need absolutely nothing from me in order to get there. Like, what the fuck, right? I cannot tell you how toxic and detrimental I think this can be. And I think it really leaves people spending a lot of money on support, not getting much out of it, and feeling like there's something entirely wrong with them, but they never even got to use the support. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so crazy. Michelle says, good girl in coaching equals has amazing results, but never actually needs anything from her coach. Exactly. Oh, you were telling that to Nevika. Yes, I think you'll get the context, but it's basically exactly what Michelle just said. She summed it up way more better or way more perfectly than I could have. But it's like old good girl narrative is like be meek and mild. New good girl narrative is like be out there, be everywhere, be bold, share your money, but don't ever need anything from me to do that, right? Right. Lucy's like, what the fuck, Dean, right? Preach. So glad you're talking about this. Thank you, Shantae. Tara said, yes, good comparison. It is similar to grooming. Right. Like, and again, I don't think like all of these coaches are out there perpetuating abuse by any means, but I do feel like it's like, I'm setting it up in this way. So when you come into my container, you will immediately feel shame for asking for anything. Like, that is not it. And it's so hard because it puts you in this impossible position because it is impossible to be a CEO who doesn't have needs, who doesn't ask for things, who doesn't get support, who doesn't like show up fully in that way for herself, right? And so you kind of like can't be a CEO and can't like do all of that, but you also have to be a CEO and do all of that. And I think it's just like the tension there is so intense, right? Michelle says, I ramble rampant and excellent at summarizing other people's ramble rants, just not my own. Michelle, same page, exactly the same. I'll summarize yours all day, but mine, I'm like, well, do you have 30 minutes? Speranza says also this, which is also not healthy. They are there for you, but not in the way you need. In other words, drink the coach's Kool-Aid, and if you deviate from their perfect funnel, then it's your fault when it doesn't work and you don't get results. Totally. Like, I think it's one thing to be like, hey, you're going to probably have to show up in XYZ ways to get results. And it's a complete other thing to be like, and if you don't, you're bad and you're shamed and you're whatever. Like maybe showing up in XYZ way just doesn't feel good to you. And then we need to explore another option. But like, right, it's like the good girl thing is like, I have to follow exactly what you say. I have to do it exactly how you say I'm going to do it. But I cannot need anything from you in order to get me there. Or I cannot deviate in any way, right? And so I think that it's just really getting difficult for people to even understand what coaching is or even really get something out of it, because it's like becomes such a joke almost that like when you say it out loud, it sounds insane, right? That you would be like, well, I pay for coaching, but I really try not to use the sessions because I want to be like self-responsible. What? I can't. Like sometimes and often actually, being self-responsible looks like advocating for your own wants and needs, right? Like being self-responsible means having your own back, right? Like, I think it's just so important to say that, like, let's make that the focus. Like, that's the challenge here, is like, it's not don't be self-responsible. It's like, be self-responsible by taking up space, focusing on your own needs, like asking for what you want or for the support you need. Like, that to me is self-responsibility. And that's like a healthy, exchange and dynamic. Now, do I think that you have to expect everything from your coach? Absolutely not. Like, as a coach, you should 100% have boundaries and a clear way to use your container. And like, if somebody's in a group program, it doesn't mean they can like have one-on-one access to you all the time. Like, that is all so fair, but like, that's not what I'm talking about here. And I think you guys all know what I mean. It's like a shame energy around anyone that like needs something, or even around anyone that like wants to know like more specifically how or whatever. It's like, no. Like, don't be low vibe. Don't ask that question. Don't have a bad day. Like that, you know what I mean? Like, that's just completely different than like, hey, there's a boundary in which like you paid for this level of support and you can't have this level of support. Totally fucking different. You know what I mean? Hey, Jordan. Michelle said, I'm also not behind the scenes in biz coaching space, so it's always fascinating for me to hear stuff like this. People are doing what now? Yeah, totally. Strong says, yes, it's about their way, and then boatloads of shame when you can't fit into their mold. Right, totally. So that's it. That's my rant on all of this. Like, I think we are just, again, this is not happening in the industry as a whole, but I think this is happening. Like, we are taking all of these new entrepreneurs or women entrepreneurs, and we're going, welcome, get amazing results, but don't you dare fucking have a need. Good luck. Right. And like, no one can thrive in that environment. And honestly, that can really hurt our industry long-term, because no one's actually able to grow from that. Like, best case scenario, more and more women start making more and more money in our industry, and it like spreads out, and it's like super normalized to have this support and this level of like, support in your life. Worst case scenario, less and less people get results or are able to grow because only a few people are doing it, because they're like the ones that supposedly like know everything, but you can't actually get support from them. And our industry starts to shrink. Does that make sense? So it's like, it is really in all of our best interest for this to go away, and for it to be about people getting support, people getting coaching, people actually seeing coaching as a channel to feel better and have more, not as like a thing that makes them end up feeling bad or shamey or hiding. You know what I mean? Let me see this before it's almost like we're coaches, but we don't want to coach. Lacey. Yes. It's kind of not almost like that. It like is like that. You know what I mean? I missed the rant, but I'm getting the vibe of what you're saying. Yes, totally. There's definitely a vibe. Michelle said, this also explains why when I first got into coaching space, people were making it synonymous with toxic positivity. And of course, little Michelle was like, oh gosh, oh shoot, it just disappeared. Oh gosh, I'm feeding into the culture of it, I think is what you were saying, but let me know. Michelle, sorry, I missed that. It's frustrating as a coach to see this happen, Shantae, totally. Stephanie says, yes, makes sense, right? Like, it is, it's so hard as someone who believes in like support and coaching and like what that can do for people, to see it kind of be like bastardized in that way of like, it's supposed to look like paying a lot of money and not getting a lot of support and like being in a good vibe. And like, that's that. Like, nah, not really. Right. You got the gist. There was a spoiler alert. She was not right. Like, I think there's a way to be like 100%. I would challenge my clients to like be self-responsible, look at their energy and what they're bringing to things, and like, that doesn't mean with me necessarily. Like, that means outside of our container. Like, one of the things I say to my clients a lot is, I'm going to get the worst of you in coaching, and please know that I understand that, and I have zero judgment around that. Like, so many of my clients like occasionally will be like, I feel like I'm a fucking disaster today, but like, just so you know, I'm mostly together. I just like, I'm having a moment. And I'm like, right, this is your space to have a moment. Like, you could be like top-notch 7-figure CEO, like for 23 of the 24 hours in this day, but this hour is your hour to be like hot mess express and get it all out. Right. So I feel like in some ways, that's how coaching should be set up. It should be like we kind of get the worst of our clients in some way, not in like the way of like we're supposed to like be their punching bag, but in the way of like that's where that should like this, that's designed for that to be like the healthy place to process that. Like just like my therapist would get like the worst of me in many ways, right? Like I'm in grief therapy right now for, you know, having gone through all that last year with losing my dad and everything. And it's like, I could literally go for like a week and not cry about it, but you bet your ass that entire hour of therapy, I'm crying the whole time, right? Like she's just going to get that version of me. And the same is true in coaching. And like the fact that we make that wrong is just nuts. Shantae said, I relate as coach and client. Who hasn't said or felt that? Exactly. You're their safe person. Yes. Get it all out with your coach. Exactly, Steph. Like that is the thing, is use the space for that. And like the idea that it shouldn't be used for that is just so confusing to me. Speranza says, this is even worse when the marketing sales before entering the program is so over the top. And then you join and it's like what you're talking about. It's like, I know it's not your topic for today, but it's a huge disconnect as well in the industry. Totally agree with that. This narrative also screwed me up in the beginning because I essentially was looking for clients who didn't have a problem. Michelle, yes, because that's why everyone was preaching. Look at my perfect clients. I have so much to say about that. Oh my God. Steph said, oh my God, so true. The tears always flow in coaching. Exactly. No, it's like bring your shit and vomit. I mean, really. It should be okay to be real and raw with your coach, right? Like if that's not the space to do it, where are you doing that? Like, that's what I want to know. I'm like, okay, so like, where is everybody else doing this? Because my clients do it with me. Like, I don't like, that's what we do. Like, what else are you doing? You know, not that they're not also bringing high vibe and good energy and we're having celebrations and whatever, but like, they're coming to get fucking supported, you know? Like, it's crazy. And the idea that like, so I had this situation kind of similar to what Michelle was saying, and I wanted to bring it today. But one of my clients was just having like a really hard month, basically, and had like quite a few sessions that just were heavy. Like she was in it, you know. And she had wrote me this message that was like meant with like a lot of love, and I really appreciated the sentiment in a way, but she was basically like, listen, I feel like I'm not being like a high vibe client. I feel like I'm not showing up. I forget how she said it, premium client, high vibe client. I don't remember the thing. But like, I'm not showing up as I should in this container, blah, blah, blah. And like, was like super fucking apologetic and was like, I'm not being like the right type of client. And I literally had to read it twice because I was like, what the actual fuck is she talking about? Like, she has been like showing the fuck up for the last month. She has been in it. She has been sharing that in session. She has been going there. She has been getting supported. Like she has showed up as such a premium client in many ways because she has like been wading through the shit. And then I got what she meant where I was like, oh, she thinks she's supposed to be perfect for me, right? Like she thinks I'm not supposed to have to deal with this. She thinks like I'm annoyed or something that like I've had to like listen to her have a few hard sessions. And I had to like really level set with her and be like, this is not a thing, like at all. And the fact that like you would even put that on yourself or expect that of yourself is the problem here. And that's what we have to work through. And it was like really healing and helpful for us to be able to like note that and work through that. But like, what the F that like, we can't just like have a hard time in business and like make that okay, right? Jess said, yes, premium is the willingness, not the perfection or the results. 100%. Like to me, a premium client is like maybe the messiest client in some ways because they're just like willing to go there with you, right? Oh, yay, Shari's home. I can't wait to hear what you think, Shari. We've been waiting. Tell us. But yeah, so like so much to say there, but like, I just think that it is so fucked, you know? And again, like there may or may not be a time depending on the container where you're like fully holding your client in all of that. Like, I'm not saying every container is built for that, but like most of them are coaching containers, right? Like, you are in such high integrity, this Lacey. I think a lot of people unfortunately are not. Yeah. Oh, what Steph said, I kind of play that role sometimes too when I'm being coached. I feel apologetic if things get ugly. Totally. And I think that it's just like, we don't realize how much this seeps into our subconscious, that there's like a way we're supposed to show up, right? Michelle said, yes, I recently did a love note for my community on giving them permission to annoy their fertility clinic with questions, because as women, we're now being told to take up space, but not in that way. And it's such a bind. 1000%, Michelle. Just said if premium is messy, I'm like creme de la creme. Just is the most premium, guys, just an FYI. So funny. But yes, like really a thing. Yes, Kim's okay with my ugly crying and snot rags. Exactly. That's what we need, Jordan. Like, that's why Kim's amazing. Shari said, okay, first 90% of my clients all think they're my worst or most difficult clients. Yep. And it's everything you're saying here. I'm like, don't worry. All of you think that and everyone's wrong. Exactly. Right. Like I always tell my clients, like, I'm super not annoyed when you like use coaching and use Basecamp. The only time I get annoyed with clients is when they really need to and won't. And then I'm officially annoyed because I'm like, why are you hiring me if you're not going to use this? What are we doing here? Like, let's talk about that. Right. So many of my clients probably know, because I'm like, why haven't I heard from you? What's going on? And it's not because they need to check in with me 24/7. Like that's not it either, but it's because like, if I know you're having a tough time and you're not reaching out, then you probably have a story that you shouldn't for some reason. And that's something we have to dismantle. So I just really want to shed light on this, because I feel like if we don't talk about these things, then everyone thinks they're crazy. They're like, whoa, fuck, I'm investing, I'm showing up, I'm doing the things. And I'm like, really not feeling supported and I'm not feeling good in this. I'm like, am I crazy? And we start self-gaslighting. And I just wanted to kind of be a voice to be like, this is an actual problem and it is not yours. It is like the problem of whoever has told you that you can't get support in that way, or, you know, that that's not like the good girl thing to do. So that is that. I want to talk through solutions because I don't want this to just be completely a rant, but like, thank you for letting me get this off my chest. Because it just like irks me so freaking much. Okay. So ways to actually get results from coaching. Let's talk about that. Ways to do that. So one of the ways to do that I really share with my clients a lot, and I think it's really important, is use coaching as a micro of the macro. And so what I mean by that is anything that you want to practice on a bigger level, like maybe you want to practice being more vulnerable. Maybe you want to practice being more seen. Maybe you want to practice setting better boundaries. Maybe you want to practice asking for more support. Coaching should be your safe micro container to do that in, right? So a lot of my clients like want to practice being more vulnerable as an example. Amazing. Welcome to the safe space to practice that on a small scale, so it feels safer to do that on a larger scale. Like use coaching for that. Think about, in the container I'm in right now, how can I use this as a micro of a bigger macro that I'm trying to work toward? Right now, one of my clients is really, really trying to be able to make more direct requests of her team. And so I've really been challenging her in coaching to be like, make a direct request of me. What do you need? Directly tell me what you need from me in this moment. And she's like, ugh. But she's doing it and she's practicing, and she knows that coaching is a safer space to practice, I guess, depending on how you want to say that, than just immediately having to do it with her team if that feels super activating to her, right? So think about how you can use it in that way. What am I trying to practice out here that I can practice in here? Like another one of my clients is really practicing like being seen more fully for herself as herself. And so she has to really practice letting me see her more fully as herself, when really her preference would just be to like only bring me results, you know, but like she gets it, and that's the practice. Thing number 2. This one drives me batshit. I actually just did a client lesson on this the other day. I think Shari and I were talking about this actually in the DMs as well, but we were talking about like trusting your own intuition more than your coach's or someone else's. I feel like that's a whole other conversation that I could get into for hours, but I feel like in this space, like that, it's almost like people are like outsourcing their intuition to someone who they think is more tapped in or something like that. And it's like, well, my coach's intuition said they should make this offer, and so I have to sign up for it. Like, No, fuck, you don't. What does your intuition say? Like, they're welcome to make that offer and they should be listening to themselves, but what does yours say? Or like, is your coach telling you they got an intuitive nudge for you? Or are you coming with a nudge that they're helping you follow, right? Like, do not or outsource your power in that way. Listen to yourself, trust your intuition, and then know that your coach is there to help you put strategy and support and execution and mindset and all the things. I mean, obviously those are my things, but in general, around your intuition. Like, this idea that you should trust someone else's intuition or like whatever that is, downloads more than your own is so damaging. And it's the same thing here. It's like literally like grooming, right? Like, again, not to perpetuate abuse, but it is manipulation to be like, I am more tapped in and you should trust me or something like that. Like, no. Lisa said, yes. Oh, good, Steph. You like that. Heather says, thank you. This one is so predatory. Right. And Heather, it's actually like, thank you for chiming in. I feel like it's so helpful from coming from someone like you too, who is super tapped into their intuition and who is super, super like intuitively led in your offerings and stuff, but you don't put that on your clients. Like, that can still be true without you putting that on your clients and taking their power. Like, I feel like you're such a good example of that. Just that I had a guy in college that said, God, Jesus, God told me to marry him. And I told him I didn't get the same message. Oh my gosh, I can like literally picture you saying that just like so kindly and being like, I just didn't get that message. That's so funny. Heather said, I have so much to say about this. Well, please do. And please share it with us now, or if and when you do, because I think that is such a fucking thing. Like, your coach should be leading you back to your intuition, to trusting yourself. And if they're not, like, please know that that is a giant waving red flag in front of your face, right? Okay, next way to use it. Really take up space in sessions. Okay, there it is. Okay. Elisa said, totally. It's so disempowering. I did quite a lot of content around intuition recently, and it feels like it's so important for everyone to trust their own intuition first, no matter what. Amen. Amen. Completely agree. So take up space in sessions. Like, I feel like there's this whole thing about not using sessions too, that just blows my mind. Like, when you say it out, like when we say it out loud, it sounds insane, right? Like, pay for coaching sessions, but don't use them. Like, that would be like pay to lease a car, but don't use it or drive it. Like, what? But also not just use sessions, but like use your session. Do you know what I mean? Like, use it for all the stuff that's actually there and coming up, not in a performative way that makes you seem like you look good or something, right? Like, use the session. I have more to say about that, but I want to look at Shari's question. Steph said that does sound insane, right? Shari said, what's your take on why this toxic approach is being adopted by people? It's so funny, Shari, and I actually think that's like a really, really, really good question. I think I can't tell if my phone is freezing. I think I saw it. If that wasn't the question, I see the one though. Here's why I think it's being adopted. And I get it in some ways, but I think that like a lot of people are really scared of like having a difficult client or fucking something up in business or not really knowing how to help someone or whatever. And so when they kind of hear the idea of like, oh, you just get to attract premium clients and they don't expect so much of you and you can work less and you don't have like client issues and people aren't mad or upset or don't have tough times. Like, I think a lot of us, like, our bodies and our nervous systems are like, that, I want that. Like, oh my God, yes. Like, I want to work all day where I have no intensity or no big emotions to hold or no, nothing but positivity and good vibes and results. Like, in some ways it's like, of course you want that. Like, it's just like the acknowledgement that it's not real is what's important. Like, I think it is a lot of work to hold really big emotions all day. And I think that in some ways it would be easier, right? If like all you were doing was like being in like high vibe energy all day and like never having to hold that. And so I think like people get really attracted to that. And when they hear like, oh, that's someone's experience and like, that's what they're doing. And like, this is how you get there and this is how you do it. I think, again, it's just like that lack of self-trust makes us go, okay, well, they must know better. That sounds amazing. I want that. I'll just do that. And so I think it's kind of with good intent in some ways, where it just seems like, yes, that feels so much safer to my brain, my body, my nervous system. Tell me more. How can I do that? And I don't think they even realize what's getting perpetuated in that. Especially if someone's had like a bad client experience, or a client that like defaulted on payment, or like wanted to end a contract early or whatever, which pretty much everyone that's ever been in business ever has had. And I think the idea of getting to tap out of that is so fucking attractive. And so it's like, I get it. And like, I just think there's not enough critical thought behind it or self-trust behind it. Right. Interesting. Shari, if you feel comfortable, feel free to share why you think that's happening too. I would be curious to hear your thoughts. But yes, Elisa, exactly. It's all shame related. Shame on you if you use your sessions. Shame on you if you don't listen to my intuition over yours, etc. But you're so right. Just obscene in the service industry. I attract premium copy clients and they still have revisions, which honestly makes the experience better when they are present. Perfectly said, Jess. Oh, let's see what Heather said. She said, I get ranty about this too. My POV on this is, if you're a coach and actually wanting to empower your clients, that empowerment should begin with the marketing and sales process. Amen. And telling them that your intuition knows something better than they do is the opposite of empowering. It's asking them to continue handing their power and their knowing over to someone, something outside of them. Bingo. That perfectly said. Like, anytime we're asking for them to give over their power, even if it's to you as their coach, we have taken a wrong turn, right? Jordan said, when I first started bookkeeping, I messed up a client's sales tax payments because I had the wrong bank account number from their previous bookkeeping. We found out 6 months and lots of fines later. That is what I go back to when I'm having a difficult time with how I support people now. Yes. Oh, that sounds horrible, Jordan. But yeah, like, I think that makes sense. Like, if we've had that difficult experience, like, there's like a lot that we have to work through to get past that, for sure. Perspective. Amen. So yes. Okay. So where was I? Really take up space in your sessions, like, use them for the messy stuff, right? You do not have to be performative for your coach. You do not have to come and bring results on a silver platter. Like, use it for what is like truly coming up for you and getting you stuck. And if you don't know what to use it for, feel free to lean on your coach for them to help you figure out what to use it for. Now, I'm not saying like that you have to give over your responsibility where now they have to like perform for you and be like, what if we talk about this? But like, you can come and be like, I feel like I'm a mess right now. I could go in 52 directions. I need you to help me sort this. Like, that is taking up space, right? Another thing is share what feels good to you and what doesn't. One of the things I always say to my clients, if you are a client of mine, I have for sure said this to you, is the only thing I ask of you is to over communicate with me. Tell me what feels good. Tell me what doesn't. I love being coached like this. I hate it when you give me to-dos like this, whatever. Tell me what works for you. I always say to my clients, I will never, ever have my feelings hurt by you telling me that. The only way I'm ever going to have my feelings hurt is if you get that to the end of our work together and you never ask for what you needed. So share what feels good to you and what doesn't. Don't be afraid to tell your coach that. They should be able to hold space for that. I think you can do it with context and care, right? I don't think you need to be like a critical asshole, but the space is about you getting supported. So being clear on what feels good or doesn't in that support is a really, really useful thing. And that is being self-responsible, by the way, being able to directly articulate, hey, I'm loving this. I would love more of this. That is self-responsibility. Hey, this isn't landing with me so well, and I'd love if we could shift in this way. That is also self-responsibility. Knowing yourself, knowing what you want, knowing what you need, and being willing to ask for it. That's cool. I love that stuff. Having a communication policy is so good. Okay, Shari says, next cue. How do you think about walking that line as a coach where you don't overcheck on your clients and allow them to take up the space, but also knowing that this is conditioned programming thing and wanting them to practice that? Like, if you have a client who really struggles with this and the coaching container comes to a close and you both realize they didn't lean as much, makes sense. Yeah, totally, Shari. I think for me, it's like, I want to know that I at least kept opening the door for that and calling it out along the way. Like, there's almost nothing I can do to ensure that the coaching container doesn't end with that still being like, gosh, I wish I would have leaned in a little bit more. But I think what I always like hold fast to or lean on is like, did I keep opening that door? Did I keep reminding them of that? Did I keep holding the space for that? I think sometimes it takes a lot of practice that might not be solved in one single like coaching agreement. But I think it's like, was I willing to call that out, or did I kind of just lean back because it was fucking easy to not be asked for a lot of things? Like that's where I try to find my differential. Now, personally, I don't do a lot of like, what's the word I would use? Like, I won't like check in a ton, because I really do think that that's my client's responsibility, but I will check in on why they're not checking in. So like, if I haven't heard from you and I know something's coming up for you, every session you're going to hear from me. Why are we not using Basecamp? So like, that's my personal line, but I think there are a lot of ways to do that. Being able to directly articulate our needs really is a superpower. Agree, Michelle. Elisa says, and also as coaches, we love those sessions, right? When a client comes and says, everything is a mess. And then I'm like, amazing, let's roll up our sleeves, get our detective hat on, and let's get to work. It would be so boring if no client ever had a problem. Also, we'd be out of a job. LOL. Elisa, this is exactly what I think all the time. Like, I'm like, am I crazy or isn't this just like our jobs? Like, I even like want to get like, am I gaslighting myself sometimes? Cause I just want to like look around and be like, but like, are we not all on the same page that like coaching people is the job? Like, yeah, no, it's confusing, right? So completely agree with you. But yeah, like those are the best sessions in many ways, I think. So yes. What else do I want to say? Yeah, I guess, I mean, this one's an obvious one, but another thing I want to say is like, use the support. Like I will tell you hands down, clients that I see really use the support, get better results. And it's not because I'm doing anything different for them or I'm better for them or they deserve it more or any of those things. It's just because they're like working through their shit faster because they're like using it, right? It's just like if I bought whatever, a piece of gym equipment for my house, like how am I going to get the best results out of it? I'm just going to use it more. Like that's pretty much it. You know what I mean? Like it's not like there's like this secret to it or something. It's just like, well, I purchased this thing. And if I use it 5 times a week, I'm probably going to get a better result than if I use it once a week. And like, that's just that. There's not a lot of like magic to that. It's just like the utilization helps you move things quicker and get more results, right? Michelle says this might be a different ramble rant soapbox, but I feel like there's a make money but don't do work narrative. Michelle, oh my God, it is a different one, but I have so much to say there. Shari says, yes, I have a hypothesis on why that happens. I think it may be a projection of the support they received unintentionally. That totally makes sense. Even if it didn't feel great to them, I think if you don't process that, you can internalize it and then start doing a similar thing. Shari, that makes total sense. I think that's so true. And it's like, you just don't know there's another way. It's almost like how abuse gets perpetuated through generations sometimes, because like, that's just what you see and learn and don't know that there's a different way. And again, not saying this is abuse. I just do think there are a few parallels there. Wait, I can't just stare at my gym equipment and feel stronger. Turns head away from balance. So funny, Michelle. I mean, yes, bad news. I know, right? Same. I would have all the exercise equipment in my house if I could just look at it and it would work. But it's kind of like people treat coaching like that. Well, you just make an investment and then it should work. I think it also gets sold like that. You just make an investment and then it should work just by being in my energy. You don't actually have to show up and do anything. This is not real. This is not real, right? Like, I just feel like we all need that level set of like, this is not real. Leslie said, sometimes I believe it still works, LOL, right? So funny. Belinda said, yes, my gym equipment is so shiny and new looking. Wink. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So use the support, like truly, if that is what you're paying for, you want to know you're showing up fully for it and like not having to be the good girl that doesn't have needs, the good girl that doesn't use it, the good girl that's like too cool to possibly need a coaching session, that's too self-responsible to get support. Again, self-responsibility does not equal not supported. Like, I don't know how we conflated those two things in our space, but like, those don't even dance in the same room. Like that, like one does not equal the other. Do you know what I mean? Like what? Michelle says that is 100% how it's sold. Pay to be in my energy. You don't have to do anything else. Right. Not a thing. Not a fucking thing. Listen, I'm not saying it doesn't help to like be in the energy of someone that has like belief, and, you know, can pull you into that. Like, I'm not saying that, you know, having like, I don't want to say this. I'm not saying there's nothing to what being around someone makes you feel like. I'm just saying the idea that that's all you're paying for and that that's all the exchanges and that that's all you have to do is bullshit, right? Just like it may feel really good to like go to a super fancy gym and that may make me want to go. And I love being in that energy and it feels super juicy, but the way I'm still going to get results from that gym is to fucking use the gym, right? Like that's the thing. You know what I mean? What else? Oh, I think I already shared this one. But this is kind of my last thing I wanted to say on like ways to actually deal with this is know that coaching will be where you bring your worst self many times and be okay with that. I think, yeah, being willing to go there, being willing to bring like the worst there is really such a gift that you can give yourself, because that doesn't just disappear because you didn't bring it to coaching. That just like comes out somewhere else, right? Or gets shoved down and comes out somewhere else way later down the road, you know, like it's still there. Let it out. Jess said being in someone's energy doesn't mean having that energy yourself unless you work through your own shit in the process. Amen. I feel this way about my dishwasher. We bought a fancy dishwasher and it's pretty and quiet and works so well, but I still have to load it and run it. Amen. Shari said, ooh, this one's for the peeps. Let's say you had the experience with a coach and now you're scared to invest. What would you say is step one to getting back into coaching with a better experience? Ooh, love that, Shari. Okay, so if you've had this and you're scared to invest, what is step one to getting back into it? Love it. Or getting back into coaching. Love it. Heather said, I also think this trend might have had some good or at least decent intentions. The idea of self-sourcing rather than having someone else be your lifeline, moving out of codependence and into empowerment. But in my opinion, there shouldn't be an either or. Like, let's get your self-sourcing while also getting you deeply held and supported. I think that makes a lot of sense, Heather, actually, where it's like, it's kind of like there's like good behind it. And like that point is a good point in general, but maybe it's gotten applied to everything. And I think that's always where it gets weird, is like when it's like, this now becomes the answer to everything instead of like, it's part of an answer, or for some people, it's the right answer. Like if you're always in codependence with your support, then yes, like self-resourcing might be like your absolute biggest growth edge. And that would be so juicy. Like if you're coming to your coach every day writing 15 paragraphs and you can never make a move on your own, fuck yeah, get in your own power, self-resource, be self-responsible, all of those things. But it's like, then it gets applied to everything everywhere and it gets toxic. So I actually think that's like such a helpful point. People fucking love making templates. This is the way. Heather, that's so funny. It's so true. Elisa said, I also feel like the prerequisite is vulnerability on both ends. So if you as a coach, for example, haven't had the internal safety or experiences of safety to be vulnerable, then you'll try to rely on those patterns more that you talked about. Yeah, that's so true. I've had this experience. Step one was rebuilding self-trust and pulling learnings from that experience. For me, when it happened, I moved past my intuition because it's what I was supposed to do. Release the supposed to's next time and followed what I wanted. And it was a much better experience. Also was open about the nerves I was having with new coaches. And that was helpful too. That's so helpful, Michelle. I love that. Yeah. Like you kind of realize where you like abdicated some of that like intuition or power or whatever, and then like realized you could take it back. So good. Okay. So these are my thoughts. I think there are ways to, again, combat this. I think we need to use it as the micro of the macro. I think we need to trust our own intuition more. I think we need to really take up space. I think share what feels good and what doesn't. Use the support. Know it's safe for your coach to get your worst self. All of those things. But ultimately, like, just be aware of this. Like, be aware of where this is sinking into your subconscious. Be aware of where you're accidentally playing this out when you don't want to or mean to. And be aware of not hiring someone that's like grooming that in their content, right? I meant on behalf of others who are not me, for the peeps. Yes, I actually got what you meant, Shari. Sorry if I didn't articulate that well, but totally totally got what you meant there. Like this, like a question to the community kind of thing. Like, tell us if this has happened to you, where, how, share all the things like Michelle did. Yes, totally agree. Would be very curious to hear that too. So yeah, like if you see this messaging, like, again, I'm not trying to say like, let's make everyone bad, but I'm just trying to say like, have some awareness, watch how someone's messaging and marketing is. If it's already making you kind of feel like you're going to have to be this perfect premium client, you're already feeling some shame in even just reading it, or like you would be doing something wrong, or you're like, you're not perfect enough for them. Like, please run the other way. That is not where results come from. And that is not what is going to give you what you need. That is not what's going to make you feel better. And that's what is taking our industry further and further away from being something that truly, deeply, profoundly supports people to something that is just about the marketing machine and what makes people buy and how you're like able to kind of like manipulate with marketing. Like, that should not be the game, right? That hurts all of us in this space. Alessia said, I had the experience in a relationship course where everything went back to it's not working because you're not taking our exact steps. And there was no space for what I needed personally to really find my own way. That's so hard. Amen. Thank you, Heather. I loved your contribution here. Nova said, I really needed this lesson on how to be coached, and I'm making myself so right for not feeling safe enough to be vulnerable and raw in group coaching containers. Yes, totally. And again, like this might not be the exact thing for every single container. Like, obviously use discernment there. Obviously, know where and when like you can lean in fully like this, and maybe challenge yourself to like have next investment be in a space where that's safe. But like, again, I think this is like a general concept sort of thing, right? Yeah. Heather said, so yeah. And I think so funny that it was like relationship stuff too, Alessia, because I feel like that's such like how do I want to say it? Like, it's even more like, what's the word? Like non-linear than business. Like, maybe you meet the person this week, or maybe you meet, I don't know if this was the exact thing, but it's like, maybe you meet them 5 years from now, but like this idea that like, if you haven't met them, you're doing it wrong or something like that. Or like, it's just, I don't know if it was actually to meet someone, but you get my example. It's very hard for me in groups too. Sorry. I so get that same, really. I mean, and again, I think something to be said for that is like, maybe group containers do feel really good for you to do that. Or maybe it's just showing you like, hey, I do want to lean more into one-on-one, or I want to use groups as an addition to that, or something like that. But I think that's really helpful to see. I was shamed for not having like 6 dates lined up in my week, because that was, oh my God, it just also sounds very tiring. Julia's going to watch this and be like, fuck you, bitch. You had me go on 30 dates in 30 days, but I'm just saying, it does seem like a lot to go on 6 dates a week. Yeah. So anyway, this is kind of it. I think we have to talk about this more. I think we have to share this more. I think we have to see where we're being performative. I think we have to see where it's like, look at me as a dancing monkey for my coach, versus like, look at me getting what I need here. Like those, that energy feels different, where you're like, I am here to show you how good I am, versus like, I'm here to take up space and I kind of don't care what you think. Like, in my ideal world, my clients kind of don't care what I think. Not in the sense that like they don't trust me or my judgment, but in the sense that they're like, I can bring everything here. It doesn't matter. She don't care. Like, that's how I want them to feel. Right. And so just pay attention to what that energy is, what you're bringing to that. And again, if you see red flags where that would not be welcome, please do not trick yourself into thinking that that is a you problem, right? It is not. That is not how support works. So that is all I have for today. Thank you for listening to my rant. I'm very appreciative of you. Thank you for all of your contributions, participation. Would love it if anybody has more answers to Shari's question if you're watching the replay. Like, let's just talk about this more. Like, I would, nobody has to do this, but I know some of you have like such strong thoughts about this too. Like, go share about that. Go have that conversation, whether it's like with one other person or publicly or whatever. But like, this is like a little scary toxic to me. I think like really not healthy stuff. So I do think that just like if we can have this conversation more and more people can be like, oh yeah, I don't have to do it that way. I don't have to feel that way. I don't have to be shamed into results. Like we can really make an impact and a difference here. So that is my challenge to you. If you guys do share any of this in any way, like obviously feel free to like share here so we can go support it, tag it, whatever. I want to be really clear that I'm in no way trying to be like, let's create a witch hunt or anything like that. Again, I don't even think this is a one person, one thing, whatever, but I do want to say, let's create awareness and let's not be afraid to like say that this is a thing happening so that people do not feel like there is something wrong with them if they're not showing up as like the most perfect client ever. So that is my wish. That is my call. I hope that this is helpful. I know that so many of you are not struggling with this and have like amazing coaches, but I really appreciate you being in this conversation. So I love you guys. I hope you have a beautiful week. If you're coming to Partnership Masterclass, I will see you guys Wednesday. And if not, I'll see you next week. All right. Bye guys.